Okay, welcome. It's Monday, 16 January in the year of our Lord 2023. It is Martin Luther King Day here in the United States. I want to welcome our worldwide audience. I want to get into something first. We just had Noor bin Laden on. We had her this morning from Davos Live, and then she did a summary hit for us this afternoon or this evening a little while ago. Should be on tomorrow. Remember, the Build Back Better, the Great Reset, all that's been kind of put off to the side. They're not pushing that like they were, and one of the reasons is Naomi Wolf. And all the great work of the War Room Posse and others in this to get to the bottom of the vaccine situation, the clinical trial that they're kind of running as a mandate. But right now, they started a little gloomy in Davos today, and the reason is they've got a Great Reset, but it's not the one that they wanted to pull off. The Great Reset is there's $300 trillion of debt throughout the world. That is government debt at every level, federal government, state government, local government throughout the world. Also corporate, all the corporate debt, all the personal debt, all of it, $300 trillion. And they understand with interest rates, a lot of this given when interest rates were near zero after the financial crisis and then the first couple of months of the pandemic with negative interest rates or zero interest rates. But now that because of inflation, because there's too much money been printed, inflation's out of control. The central banks are having to crack down, whether it's this Bank of Japan or it's the Federal Reserve. And of course, today, in the Financial Times of London, companies face billions in write-downs as Davos confronts souring economy. See it right there, my favorite paper, the Financial Times of London. And this, over the weekend, as we were working through the shows this week and the debts and everything like that, I want to make sure, and I asked the guys at Home Title Lock, Matthew Cox, to come on, because I want to take a few minutes. With this economy, and even Biden in this bizarre speech he gave today, actually had one moment of clarity. He talked about your home. As we go into this economic turmoil, because right now, everybody's agreeing with us, there is going to be a recession. It's just the degree of how difficult, and I keep saying right now, it's actually a depression among working class people because these interest rates are exploding. Your anchor to windward in this is going to be your home. If you're fortunate enough to actually already be a homeowner, that is going to be the one thing that kind of anchors you in these times. And as we've gone through the fifth generation warfare and talking about all the cyber attacks and what happened last week with air traffic control. What's happening, obviously, in the war in Ukraine, this fifth generation warfare. I have a piece up on Getter that I pulled from the Taipei News. It talks about cyber attacks and artificial intelligence being the lead that the PLA will use in their assault on Taiwan. They're actually talking about this right now. There's going to be artificial intelligence coupled with cyber. That it's getting so sophisticated. And this is why I'm glad that Home Title Lock is one of our partners. I want to bring in Matthew Cox. Matthew, I'm more concerned than ever that people, and they're just so busy, and they don't realize how rudimentary the title system is in this country, and how it's still based on so much just paperwork that people can go in there, actually hack into these fairly rudimentary county or state level systems, actually get your mortgage changed, get your title, change the name, take out a big loan from the bank, and the first thing you know is when the delayed payments, hey, where's your money you owe us for this, the second equity loan you took out on your house. So I want you to walk through what people have to do, because we need the audience. I need people, and this is why we bring in people for building the alternative economy, like a public square, where you're having these exchanges where you don't have to give money to people that hate you. The other is preparation. And you need to prepare. And we're so proud of putting people forward and said, hey, here's how you prepare. So, Matthew, first of all, I want to tell people how easy it is to do this. And number two, what they need to do today, not wait, but what they need to do today to combat this.
Well, you have to check your title. And most people aren't going to do that. They need a service. Just like you have a service on your credit card or even an alarm system on your home. You need to check your title regularly, and people aren't going to do that. So they have to have a service like Home Title Lock. A Home Title Lock is constantly scrolling public records, constantly looking at your title, You would be notified immediately of any type of change in your title. And the problem is, even if someone were to check their own title, that there's just no way that they could stop this by themselves, and they certainly couldn't handle what's going to happen. The ramifications of someone taking your title or borrowing against your home, or even changing the warranty deed out of the homeowner's name into a separate person's name and selling the home. The average person simply can't. They can't afford to hire an attorney. They don't have the knowledge to do it themselves to correct that problem. So the only real solution is a company like Home Title Lock. That really is the best course of action, and it's so inexpensive. It's less than $1 a day.
But I want to make sure people know, because right now we're going to go through a economic headwind like people have not seen since 2008. How prevalent is this crime? I wanted people to understand this is not just something that maybe happens to something you read and happens in some remote part of the country. How prevalent is this crime right now?
Well, so when I was doing it, it was in its infancy, and it has absolutely exploded over the last 5 years. There was a time when they were doing tax fraud. People were claiming there were criminals out there that were applying for individuals' tax refunds, and that started off small, and then it exploded, and that's what's happening. Over the course, it takes 5 or 6 years for these things to catch on, and then suddenly all the criminals have the knowledge of how to do it, especially this crime, because it's so easy. It is literally, I can file one piece of paper and satisfy the mortgage on your home. I can file a second piece of paper and I can transfer the deed to your house, or I don't even need to transfer the deed to your house. I can borrow against your house while you're living in your house. I could have that money placed in a bank, remove it.
Yeah,
you wouldn't even know.
That's the one I worry about. It's not just transferring the deed. You actually can go and take it, change the deed, borrow against that deed, and the first thing you know is the bank shows up and says, "Hey, you got to start making your payments." You're going, "What are you talking about?" And the cash has gone to somebody else. And at that time, when that happens, you just can't tell the bank, "Hey, that's not us." The bank doesn't care. They've got a loan. They got your deed, and your house is collateral. You got to pay the loan, right?
Absolutely. Banks have taken people's houses, legitimately taken your house from you because someone borrowed $200,000 on the home that you own and they foreclosed. Most people simply, they don't have the $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 that it takes to hire an attorney and fight a bank. And how can you prove that you didn't do this, especially if the person does it in your name? They may show up as you. I've had 27 driver's licenses issued in 7 different states in individuals' names. I've stolen over 50 identities. So I would show up with a driver's license as you and sign those documents as you. How do you prove it wasn't you? It's a horrible situation to be in.
No, it's a heinous crime too, particularly with people that are older. And I'm telling you right now, you need that. You need to make sure that mortgage and that deed is totally squared away, because we're going to go through some real headwinds here. Matthew, how do they get to Home Title Lock? Tell people where they go right now to get the information on all this.
HomeTitleLock.com. It's that simple. It's a very, very easy to sign up, very inexpensive. They'll give you a free title search on your house to make sure that your title is absolutely in order from the very get-go. That's the first thing they're going to make sure, is that you're in a good spot to begin with, and then they will completely monitor it 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
We need everybody on board on the ramparts to do this. You got to take that potential worry out of your mind. Matthew Cox from Home Title Lock, thank you very much. By the way, one of the top cyber criminals for the FBI when he was on the plan for the bad guys. Now he's a good guy. Matthew, thank you so much. This whole thing of debt, we're very focused on the debt ceiling. We're leading the charge on this renegotiation to make sure that everything is that we get exactly what we need. Remember, I'm putting out there, we need to audit of the Fed, we need to audit the Defense Department, we need the Treasury to show us their cash flow model. So this is going to be a very tough negotiation. You're going to see a lot of stupid things out there, but the centerpiece is that Congress has to come together, particularly the Republicans have to come together and kind of look at this from one point of view. I want to bring in Leon Benjamin now, Pastor Leon Benjamin. There's a special election in my beloved Commonwealth of Virginia coming up, I think in early February, Pastor. You're running, yes. You're the nominee running in the 4th. Tell us about, first off, tell the country about the district. Tell MAGA about the district, and tell us, why are you running, and what do you hope to accomplish when you get to Congress, sir?
Well, look, God bless you, Steve. I love you so much, man, and what you're doing. And this is perfect timing right now, because in my district, I'm running in a special elections, which will occur February the 21st, 2023, just a few weeks away. We're already in early voting season in Virginia's 4th congressional district. I am running in this district because it is time to break the anomaly of we can't come together. This race in particular is going to show how we must transcend party lines and unite the people. The people are suffering regardless of color, race, gender, sexual identity, orientation. This thing is coming to a head where the left and the Democrats and even rhinos are literally almost destroyed this nation's fiber of the Constitution, the fabric that keeps us and upholds us through our Christian Judeo values. And so this race right here, my opponent has no capacity whatsoever to unite the people. They have marginalized the communities, blacks over there, whites over there, transgenders over there, homosexuals over there, poor people over there. I mean, everybody's in a box. Nobody can breathe, Steve. Nobody's breathing. And so I am a breath of fresh air. I'm the people's choice. And what I'm going to do when we get to Congress, because it's not me, it's we the people. When we get to Congress, we're going to be that continuity, that bridge that allows us to solve problems and not play political games with the hearts and minds of the people, especially in the 4th congressional district where crime is high, inflation, people can't pay their rents, education, I call it the money follows the child. Well, right now the money is following the interest groups and the institutions, and the parents have no rights. So it's time to back the parents. And that's what we're going to do, Steve. It's time right now. And I'm asking everyone for their help. Go to my website, Benjamin4Congress.com, and jump in, pitch in, donate, pray, and let's take this seat. This seat is up for grabs. And we pray for Congressman Donald McKeechin and his passing and his family. But this seat 223, this is amazing, Steve. In the year 223, this seat will be number 223 for the Republican Party, and it's time to bring this to fruition.
How do you do that in a district that's very heavily Democratic, at least in registration and traditional vote? When their pitch, because when I read your material, you're very much for the traditional family. You're very much for traditional values. You're very much common sense on economics, it looks like, on national defense. How do you do that on an opponent that is, when you say come together, they're already so much outside the mainstream, but it seems that the district is used to voting for that. So how are you going to make that pitch of come together when you're already going up against somebody on a policy basis? I'm not saying a personal basis, but on a policy basis is pretty radical, or it's pretty far from where your policies are, sir.
Well, you kind of said it right there. My opponent has propagated policies like what happened in Loudoun County, stood with legislation that hid the actual incident that happened when that supposed transgender boy raped that girl in that school. If it was up to the legislation that was written, that policy, it would have never got found out. My opponent stood with that. And these are the things that people need to know. They don't know who they're voting for. My opponent stood with legislation that allows the money, again, not to follow the child, takes away and strips parental rights. Parents don't have a say-so. If my opponent goes into Congress, parents will not have a say-so when it comes to the curriculums being taught in their school. And we need to let everybody know. Thank you for allowing me to be on the show today. I have farmers calling me, dealing with this thing with solar panels that have now become a wasteland in a lot of farm country. They don't work. Our grid can't sustain solar panels right now. We live off of almost 80% of fossil fuels. My opponent is so much on the clean energy and the high ESG scores. People need to know where they stand policy-wise. They have refused to debate me, Steve. My opponent doesn't want to debate me. And I think the reason why is because they don't want the people to know who they're really voting for. Debates are not for the candidate, as I was sharing on a little while ago on another show. Debates are for the voters.
Why do you think they're? Be specific. Why do you think they're avoiding you on a debate to get there? I mean, the solar panels. First of all, they're all made by slave labor in China. It's a disgrace that we even have them here in the country. Then you get them here and they're not working. But your opponent is all for ESG. I mean, the committee that you may well sit on of the weaponization of government once you're in Congress. One of the principal aspects of that is parents that have been targeted by the FBI and targeted by DOJ just simply for going to school board meetings and bringing up things about the gender identity, the CRT. Just by doing that, they're being targeted by their government. So why do you think specifically your opponent refuses to debate you? Get on a stage in front of the citizens of the 4th Congressional District of the Commonwealth, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, and fight it out with a battle of ideas, sir.
They're assuming that just because people vote one way, traditional wise, that they assume that they're going to just go ahead and do it again and be a sure slide in. But that's not going to happen in this race. People are, I call it exiting, walk away. There's a huge walk away movement going on right now across the nation, not just in Virginia. People are walking away from the Democratic Party, or let's just say from the policies. Beautiful people. So we're not talking about a person who's a Democrat. We're talking about the platform. People are waking up, Steve, and it is happening right now. I'm talking to moms, especially who love their children. They have special needs, whether it be autism or IEPs or need after school. The Democrat Party has totally failed us in this area of education, and my opponent is standing on that side. And we need someone who's going to stand for all the people. And that's what I'm going to do in Congress. I'm not just going to be representing Republicans in that seat. I'm going to represent Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and as we say in the country, lottie dottie and everybody. I mean, we're going to represent everybody, Steve.
Pastor Leon Benjamin, Virginia 4th. We look forward to having you back on here. Between that, what's your social media? How do people find out more about you as a person and your policies? Find out more about you as a candidate. Where do they go?
Yes, they can go first to my website, Benjamin4Congress.com. Like me up on Twitter, Leon for Congress. Also on Facebook, Leon for Congress. Same thing on Instagram. And share my posts. Get the word out. This special election is going to happen so quick, and we need everybody to turn out because we got a chance to take this seat, make history, and bring a district that's been starving for unity, actually bring a what I call a life refreshing to come down and be in U.S. Congress, not representing personal interests, special interest groups, but representing actually we the people. Thank you so much, Steve. I love you, man, for the work you're doing.
No, I tell you what, Congressman, the people in the 4th, such a good area of the Commonwealth, and there's such good folks down there. They deserve a fighter like you. So good luck, sir. Godspeed.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Virginia 4th. That's going to be a dogfight, and Pastor Benjamin's a fighter. I want to bring in another fighter, Natalie Winters. Natalie, every day you're blowing me up with another incredible story. But you ought to know too, Natalie's going to really kind of help us out here as we get into this the Biden crime scene. She's going to help us expose what I call the Democrat Illuminati, the law firms that really run this city. But this one you put up today is so important. I don't know if Memphis has got it, but can you walk us through this new story you have up on War Room?
Sure. So this has to do with the CDC and what they're planning to do behind closed doors. And frankly, with what we've seen them do in front of open doors, what they're planning to do in secret is all the more concerning. So I'd found an announcement on the Federal Register very recently where they announced an intent to have what's called a closed meeting. And this designation, they cite a lot of rationale that goes from the U.S. Code and also someone who works within the Director of Strategic Business Initiatives unit within the CDC, which is an interesting unit to exist in the first place, of course, within the CDC. But this meeting that they're having, which it's set to take place on March 7th, virtually, but also I think there's some in-person component. And I'll read the direct quote because I think that does it justice. It has to do with developing a public health tool to predict the virality of vaccine misinformation narratives. And the two other topics that they're going to address in this meeting are disease, disability, and injury prevention and control, in addition to collaborative surveys to provide inputs into vaccine-related economic evaluations. So it's just another perfect example. This, of course, is coming on the heels of the Twitter files, coming on the heels of that bombshell story from The Intercept, which really got into the weeds when it came to...
Hang over a second. I want to tie Intercept, Twitter files, and this. Explain to me what this is again. Go slow. You know me. Go slow. When Natalie I said go slow. Make sure I understand it. Because if I can understand it, the audience can understand it. What exactly are they doing?
So, a notice for a closed meeting from the CDC was put out very recently. And per federal law, they have to disclose what they're going to talk about in broad strokes, but not much more. So of the available data that we have, what the CDC is convening, really plotting to create, is the development of a public health tool to predict the virality of vaccine misinformation. So it's sort of along the lines of what I discussed probably a few weeks ago on the show, this idea of, pre-bunking, right? Or in some cases, debunking misinformation, which of course they love to move the needle, whether it's in line with the Chinese Communist Party or in this case, more likely, probably Big Pharma, about what exactly constitutes misinformation. So that, of course, dovetails with the broader narrative of these Intercept leaks, of course, the Twitter files, and how the federal government is really working to censor misinformation, though they never really can provide a cohesive or coherent definition as to what misinformation is.
Fifth generation information warfare. How could they have the chutzpah? Given we had Natalie on last hour, the work that you've been doing, you see the Twitter files, you see just everything's coming out on the science and evidence. You just heard about the court ruling in New York State about the transmissibility, which they just lied outright. How can they have the chutzpah to say they've got to know the virality of misinformation? Is this that we're going to have to go in and deconstruct it brick by brick, that they're just never going to give up? And this is another sign where they're now actually trying to develop new tools and new weapons against the people?
Well, I think this story, it's sort of, missing the forest for the trees type scenario, in the sense that this is just one example of how these three-letter agencies, really more broadly the intel community, has kind of weaponized the term misinformation. And if you really want the signal and not the noise here, I was going through the federal grant database just recently, and I put in the search terms misinformation and disinformation. And what's so curious to me as an investigative reporter, these terms only ever first appeared, right, in the context of federal money being given out to police either misinformation or disinformation. In the context of misinformation, the first time it appeared in the database was 2010. And the first time that disinformation ever appeared was 2013. And if you break down, if you itemize the spending in terms of, and this is coming from all federal agencies, groups like CDC, NIH, FDA, DOD, Department of State, really all of them, 98% of these grants occurred after the Trump administration came into power. And since then, it really has escalated. So if you want to talk about the growth of the administrative state from the context of how they're spending tens of millions of dollars to go after misinformation, this is a perfect example of it. And I don't think it should be lost on anyone. 2010, the rise of the Tea Party, really that's when you see the rise of the populist movement. And what I've said from day one, misinformation has always been a tool, a cudgel that they have tried to use against people who really go against the establishment, i.e. the populist movement.
Natalie, hang on for 1 second because I want to bring you back up, Bray. I want to talk about this. For the guys that call Natalie for a date, and when she says no, on Saturday night, I'm going to the federal grant register, she's not blowing you off. That's not the equivalent of saying I'm washing my hair. Natalie Winters actually is going through the federal grant register. I was flipping through the federal grant register the other night and noticing. Natalie, amazing. Short commercial break. Back with Natalie Winters in a moment.
Ground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. Natalie, I was only slightly kidding about the federal grants register. This is the way that your research and your investigations are so powerful. I just want to make sure people, before I lose you tonight, is that, these events are linked. It was the rise of Trumpism and the rise of Trump and the MAGA movement in 2016. They had started in you saw the misinformation narrative, how they're pushing that, but they realized they had a problem when they actually lost. And so from 2016, I just want to make sure you got from 2016 till now, there's been an explosion in the importance of her piece. Everybody can get it on War Room, and I want Grace and Captain Bannon, if you can put it up in all the different live chats, and Carly Bonet over at the Midnight Writer over on Telegram and our Telegram channels, all of it, because you show where they're not stopping. I mean, if we think we got them on their heels with the vax issues, trust me, these folks are not going down without a fight. They've made so many tens of billions of dollars on this entire vaccine situation. They're not going to go down without a fight. So what are the math? Have we really seen, can you empirically show we've had an explosion since 2016 in this whole everything that we try to counter their narratives is all misinformation, ma'am?
Sure. So I guess I have gotten ahead of myself because I was going to write this up for a piece tomorrow or the next day. So I will definitely do that so people can see what I'm talking about. But I think it really is so important because you really can understand this is the evidence that we need to prove that misinformation has always been just a political means to an end. So for the word misinformation, the first time it appears in this grant database is 2010. And now there's 209 grants that use that term. And 9 times out of 10, it's in the context of combating misinformation, either domestically or abroad. And of that 209 sum of grants, 4 of them were before the Trump administration. The rest of the 205 all occurred after the inauguration of Trump. And you see a same pattern with the term disinformation. There were 358 mentions of them. 8 of them were before the Trump administration came to power, which means about 97.8% of the grants talking about misinformation came during the Trump administration. But it's just really funny to juxtapose this narrative, right? The skyrocketing of the term misinformation used against whether it's people who are, skeptical of, say, the COVID-19 vaccine or skeptical of climate change, because it really goes against the left-wing narrative on misinformation, which is that, it's the greatest problem facing our time since, time immemorial. We've had to deal with the misinformation. That's not the case. The data suggests otherwise, that this really was concocted out of thin air, the thin air that surrounded whether it was the Tea Party movement or really the surge of the populist movement here in the United States. So I think timing is really important when it comes to when this whole misinformation line of attack. It was sort of when the, ad hominem attacks on conservatives started to falter. That was when they re-upped this term misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories. And I think right now we're really seeing, for lack of a better term, the chickens come home to roost, in the sense that throughout the entire COVID-19 pandemic, the word that's probably been said the most on all mainstream media networks has been misinformation, because it's been this arrow in the quiver that they've really been sharpening, this spear that they've been sharpening to be able to use to really drive through the heart of people who dare to defy the establishment, whether it's the Trump movement, people who are skeptical of getting the COVID-19 vaccine, skeptical of mask mandates, you name it. So I'll write this all up, but I think that is really the signal, not the noise.
This is huge. This is what some people are calling now fifth generation warfare. General Flynn has a great book on that. Or, as the Chinese have said, unrestricted warfare, the psychological warfare, the information part, the PSYOP part, all of it. Natalie, how do people follow you, ma'am?
I'm Natalie G. Winters on all platforms.
By the way, our executive editor and co-host, Natalie did such a good job the other day in hosting. I had tons of friends who were calling me Wally Pip. Wally Pip, which is the first baseman that Lou Gehrig replaced.
I don't know who that is.
Never gave the job back. 18 years. Thank God. Natalie, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Want to go talk about an honor. This week with the Martin Luther King holiday is always a kickoff for two things. Well, you got Sundance in the cultural side, the film side, but you've had Davos is always around this time, and also the March for Life here in the United States. Father Frank Pavone joins us. Father, tell us this year, I want to make sure, because of the monumental victory with the Dobbs decision and Roe v. Wade, and then the midterms, all of that. I was amazed here because we have, the Breitbart Embassy on Capitol Hill, and Andrew and honestly, I didn't really know much about the March for Life, and it would be bitter cold, and it looked like 500,000, I don't know, million. These things, the only thing I ever saw bigger was the early Tea Party marches. These things were massive, and nobody in media covered it. Even Fox didn't cover it. Nobody covered it. I said, what is this thing going on? I said, and it's so young. What impressed me was the age. I mean, it was below 30. And guys would say, well, Steve, that's because modern technology, these kids know today where life starts. And so the movement of the right to life movement, the pro-life movement, is really a movement of young people. And Father Frank Pavone, you were the guy that really did this and pulled this off with the organizers of it. Is this year, we're coming up on it. I know we're going to cover it every day about events and what's going on itself. Captain Bannon will be up here to cover the march. Tell us what's going on and what can we expect?
Yeah, it's going to be another great march. This, of course, is the 50th march. Just the fact that crowds of this size, as you said, in the hundreds of thousands, have gathered now consistently for 50 years. Just that is an amazing fact and an amazing news story. But, the media coverage, of course, got a big bounce when President Trump became the first sitting president to come physically to the March for Life. But we're going to see it again this time, the march being on Friday, the 20th. We'll see the hundreds of thousands. We'll see people now coming for the first time when Roe v. Wade is no more. And so it'll be a celebratory tone, but it'll also be a recommitment, because we keep marching simply because abortions keep happening. We need federal protection as well as state protection for these babies. And the state protection has greatly increased. We've got about a dozen states now that are essentially protecting the unborn right from the beginning, which is great. But a lot more work to be done. There will be, Steve, in the coming year, a lot more state marches, which is good, but we can't lose our focus on the need to call our federal elected and appointed officials to protect the unborn. So we're going to have a series of events now in these next few days that'll rally all kinds of people.
Well, that's the question. Is the fight's not over at the federal level. It has shifted a little bit to the state because you had this monumental victory. And I want people to understand that it took them 50 years, right, of just absolute grinding it out. And you guys had a lot more cloudy days than you had blue sky days. That's the amazing thing about never give up and never fight. But are you concerned that, because look, it's always cold around the 20th, sometimes cold. I mean, I've seen it when it's been single digits. You guys had hundreds of thousands of young people there. Is there a concern that because I'm not saying rest on the laurels, but people say, hey, we've got the federal thing done. Let's focus on the states. Or you're still going to galvanize everybody as this biggest and most important of all the pro-life events annually.
It'll still be the biggest, but I do have a concern. In fact, I had this concern all through the progression of the Dobbs case, because a lot of us in the pro-life movement were saying, well, now this is going to go back to the states, go back to the states. Well, it goes back to the people and their elected representatives. That's the term that the Dobbs decision used. And elected representatives are at every level of government, local, at city council, state level, and federal level. So it is, I think, a moment of re-education of the movement. We need to grasp what the Dobbs case did and didn't say. And that it did not take away from Congress the need to legislate on this. As a matter of fact, one of the key briefs in the case was from 228 sitting members of Congress saying to the court, let us do our job. That is, legislate, because Roe v. Wade was blocking that. Let us do our job to legislate to protect these unborn children. So it was the largest number of sitting members of Congress ever to call for the end of Roe v. Wade. Now that it has happened, they can't walk away from the field. They got to do the job they asked the court to let them do. So we're going to be working on that. There might be, I know that there are some states where they're not sending buses this year because they said, well, we're going to support the state marches. A lot of people are going to go to the state marches who would not have come to the national march anyway. We can't use that as a reason to stop sending people to the national march.
There was a number of Republican presidents in the 50 years, and I don't think Trump gets enough credit for this. He's the first president ever to come down and actually physically go and give a speech to this massive, cold, young but cold, temperature-wise crowd. Correct? He's the only president to do that.
That's right. I remember in the early years. I remember during the Reagan years, he called in on the telephone to Nellie. He addressed the marchers. George W. Bush did the same thing. He addressed them by telephone. But there's nothing that replaces the physical presence as so significant. And he did that. I remember standing right in front of the platform as he was speaking that day. People were just so energized, and to this day they are energized, because with a sitting president being there at the march, that just elevates the whole issue and the whole movement for the whole country. No matter what position people take on abortion, they see, wow, this is an important movement, and this has gotten the attention at the highest levels of government. So it's an enduring, to his credit, but it's an enduring blessing and strengthening for the movement as well. So Steve, we're going to do a number of things. I'm going to be privileged again to lead the prayer service on the morning of the March for Life, and I want to ask our viewers to come to Constitution Hall that morning, Friday morning, for an interdenominational prayer service. It's because one of the things we're going to do, we're going to honor the pregnancy centers. You and I have discussed how the pregnancy centers after Dobbs were under severe attack, not only physically, but then you had people like Elizabeth Warren say, oh, we got to pass legislation to rein in these fake clinics and all these lies that are told about these frontline people who are saving lives every day. We're going to have 6 or 7 of the founders, the pioneers of the pregnancy center movement in Constitution Hall Friday morning, and we're going to honor them. And we want to fill that place to show people that, hey, we appreciate this work. Hundreds of thousands of volunteers across the country helping these young moms and dads who are so afraid that they think they have to have their child killed. These pregnancy centers are doing mammoth work, life-saving work. Let's honor them at that prayer service Friday morning. That'll be just one of several events that will come on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Washington, and we can talk about some of the other details if you like. But there'll be a lot of events, and we've got the schedule up on our website, endabortion.us.
Okay, how do people get to where all the events are? We're going to have you back on and go to the details. The Constitution Hall prayer session, interdenominational, starts at 8:30 a.m. 8:30.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Doors will open. I take it around 8 o'clock. To get everybody in there?
7:30.
7:30. Perfect.
Yep.
What website, what social media for you and website? Where do people go?
Okay. Website, endabortion.us. endabortion.us. My social media is FR Frank Pavone on all the platforms, FR Frank Pavone.
Father Frank, thank you very much. Look forward to having you back on here, sir.
Okay, Steve, thanks a lot.
A major event, and we're going to do wall-to-wall coverage of it. Do we have Brandon Showalter's cold open? And let me say before I do this, I love Brandon Showalter. He's one of the best investigative reporters out there. I would have him more, but these things are so disturbing. It's like I say, it's not my line of country, and quite frankly, it freaks me out. So let's play this cold open. You'll see why. Then I want to bring on the great investigative reporter from the Christian Post, Brandon Showalter. We don't have. Okay, only had a day to get it right, but that's okay. Brandon Showalter. I'm on a roll today. Here's what it is. We had all these great cold opens, but we don't need them. In fact, I actually am glad that's not happening because I can't. It's very tough for me to even watch it. Brandon, tell us. We don't have the cold open ready, but tell us what's going on and what this epitomizes. Because once again, it's very disturbing on your research.
Well, I'm here today to talk about a documentary film called Dead Name. I did a review of this just before Christmas, but this has just come out. It's on Vimeo now, and it profiles 3 families who have been torn apart by transgender ideology. Broken Hearted Films. It's available now on Vimeo, and since it's no problem that you don't have the trailer, but I will describe what you will see if you watch this, and I would urge everyone to do so. It begins with a child who's dressed head to toe in pink, a boy. He's maybe 4 years old, 5, 6 at most. You learn that his name is Jonas, and he says in a childlike voice, if you want girl parts and you don't have them, you can do special surgery where they turn your penis inside out and there's a vagina inside. His mom, who happens to be a lesbian, is divorced from her ex, who had been trying to trans him into a girl named Rosa. You also see a story of Amy, who's a mother whose teen daughter identified as trans and was able to acquire testosterone after a telehealth call with Planned Parenthood behind her back. And Bill, whose son started identifying as trans in college, and the hospitals and the clinics undermined him at every turn. It's the family rupture side of transgenderism, and that has not been explored much, certainly in the legacy press. I've profiled some parents like that at the Christian Post. But this documentary is a visceral, gut punch, intimate portrait glimpse and sort of a fly-on-the-wall look into what happens when families have to deal with this ideology invading their home. I can't articulate enough just how powerful it is. You can go and watch the trailer on YouTube and on Vimeo and pay a few bucks to watch the whole film. It's 45 minutes of extremely powerful stuff.
Walk me through on Vimeo. Where do people go? Because I want people to watch this film. Where do they actually go on Vimeo? Is it you just have to Google in
Dead Name,
and just go
2
to
words.
the film Dead Name?
Dead Name, 2 words. And it is Broken Hearted Films is the production company. You'll see it's there. It's like 45 or 50 minutes. It's like $9 to rent, I think. It's people like to complain. Why is it behind a paywall? Just think 2 lattes at Starbucks. Just watch the film. Independent filmmakers are filling a very crucial truth-telling void because the legacy press has not been giving a voice to the parents. Certainly, only very recently have outlets like Reuters and a little bit in the New York Times even, and the New York Magazine Intelligencer in the last few months have started to introduce some scrutiny of what I believe, Steve, is one of the greatest medical scandals of all times. Yeah. Children on blockers and hormones and that kind of thing. But the parents have not been given a voice, but they are in this film.
Hang on one second. I want to thank Memphis and my crack team here. We now have it up and booted. Let's play this, and I'm going to bring you back afterwards. Go ahead and play the trailer.
If you want girl parts and you don't have them, you can do special surgery where they turn your penis inside out and there's a vagina inside.
Preschool sends out a letter to all the parents announcing one of our students is now Rosa, and we would love you all to come and celebrate and support her. And he was 4 years old. I didn't even know if he knew what a pronoun was. I go to the daycare a week later to drop him off, and it's Rosa is written on the entrance sheet where I have to sign. Rosa is on his cubby. It's everywhere. And they would just look at me and listen. They would say, Helen, you should really learn to accept this and celebrate it. And I'm like, celebrate what? celebrate that my child's going to be put on hormones and his penis will never grow and he'll never have a normal sex life and he'll be on drugs for the rest of his life.
This was when she was like 15. I remember being up in her room and she said, I'm trans and I need a new name. Somehow I got a text from CVS. Your prescription for TES is available. She's like, it's mine. You can't take it from me. You can get this by making a phone call and having a tele appointment. I mean, there was no psychological evaluation. There was nothing. Where does our species go if you can cut off your body parts like this?
Sean had set up an appointment with an endocrinologist at the hospital to try to get hormones. I'm looking at it as, hey, this kid just needs to explain to him, hey, he's had a lot of traumatic events through his life, losing his leg. We had an older son that died of a heroin overdose when he was 8 years old. He loss of his mom, being diagnosed with cancer again. I mean, I went through I said, all these things have to have a big effect on him. When I had the appointment with the psychiatrist, I was just blown away when she turned around and told me that he's definitely transgender, and you are an unsupportive, abusive father. I'm trying to keep him alive.
Brandon, one more time. We only got a minute. Well, first off, where do people? This thing's so disturbing. I mean, I don't know how you get your head around it. And the media is not doing a good job about people that get into this and then want to say, hey, I didn't want to do this, or I want to reverse it, and the families. And so people have to watch this film. Where do people go to you for your social media and your reporting over at the Christian Post? Because you're really the most, I think, important investigative reporter in this area. Where do they go?
Well, on Twitter, at Brandon M Show is my Twitter handle. All of our print reporting is at christianpost.com. I did a critical review of this film, Dead Name, which you can go and watch on Vimeo, Broken Hearted Films. You saw that trailer. It's a gut punch. Just wait till you see the whole movie. Very much worth your time.
Brandon Showalter, thank you very much for joining us here in the War Room. Make sure everybody gets it. Brandon Showalter, Christian Post, and Libby Evans over at Post Millennial, kind of the tip of the spear in this. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. Back here tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. The show's going to be explosive on that, I can guarantee you. See you back in the War Room tomorrow morning at 10.